the classic checks. So if somebody can tell me if you see at least two lovely faces and then one other face, a guy with a cap on his head, and if you hear as well, because at the end of the day, that's the most important is, do you hear as well? If you can type that in the chat, a thumb up or something like that, that would be amazing, of course. In the meantime, I will quickly reintroduce the Seri. So first of all, I'm Jonathan. I'm just a moderator over here. I'm there to basically bring your voice in front of those guys so that you can extract
Just a
the maximum
moderator,
value.
John.
Just a moderator, man.
Come on,
So
man.
I'm
You're putting
extracting
yourself
the
down.
value. No. I'm really looking to that, man. I have other roles, but this time it's really about moderating, connecting you guys in the audience with the guys over here. I would love to pull them. Hello, Laurent. Thank you for the checks. Always good that somebody is answering those. So for the other ones, if you can type like your role, maybe where you're basically connecting from, that's always fun for us. I can tell you that I see already 15 people joining. We're also streaming on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live. Basically, we're becoming a broadcast company, which is pretty cool. That said, we are on a journey to basically help all the companies bring a topic on all the tables from an organization, which is monetization, which is for guys like Thijs 100%, and he will present himself, but he's 100% Dutch. I'm 50% Dutch. So most of the time when you bring that word in our conversation, you kind of catch our attention. And Mike will also bring a lot of value over here. And so basically you get it. We bring a Seri. You had access to the two CEOs of the company. One is Lusmo, the other one is Datalook. The second session was also with Lusmo and Datalook, but more on the product side. So we went how to approach it with cloud, what is an SDK, how do you package it, the tiering, all those elements were in there. The replays are accessible, some snippets are already out, conversations are open. And now we bring the third Seri, or the third episode. And so this one, I will just drop the topic and then I will let the guys introduce themselves. Is so basically, welcome to Stop Selling Dashboards. So that's our topic for today. So the guys will present themselves and then we will go in there. There is a little tab with QA where you can ask a question. When they're directly linked in the topic that we're discussing, I might pull it up. If not, don't worry. I bring everything at the end so that we are sure that we're getting a maximum value out of it. So my proposal over here is, Mike, how do you pitch your job to your best friend?
That's a good one, John. I hadn't thought about it that way, but essentially, I look after commercial strategy here at Datalook. And in terms of my background, I've helped many SaaS companies of different shapes and sizes over the last, 15 years or so to design and build business and data product strategy. And what I've tried to do is use my background and kind of pretty significant experience across operational and financial leadership roles to really bring business value to all of those conversations. So that's kind of me.
I will bring it this way. We have a wise man between us. So basically,
you mean an old
leverage
guy,
the
John,
wise man, because those two other ones are like, a bit more free fly. So we have a wise person over here. So I will call you Yoda for the rest of the session. Just so you know.
It suits my age, John. Yeah, I'll live with that.
Lovely. I think we're kicking it up just like I like. This is the kind, you get the motion, you get the vibe. So Tess, your turn. I will not say how you pitch it to your best friend, but I will be even meaner. How do you explain to your kids what do you do?
Okay, well look, that's a really, really good question, and one that I had to actually answer the other day, because I received a question from one of my boys saying, "Why are you always at work? Like, why do you always seem to be away from for work? What are you doing?" And I tried to explain to him, well, look, I always use football as an analogy. Okay, I think it's the simplest way. If you like football, and my boys love football, so I used football as for this example. And I said, just imagine you've got a team of players, right? And you're competing against other teams because they're trying to do you one up and they're trying to do better. Well, I am part of one of those teams, right? And I'm trying to lead the team. Now, there's a lot of different leaders in the team, right? You've got the coach who is on the sidelines. Consider that our CEO, right? He's the head coach. He puts the team together. You then got the technical staff, which is our CTO. We make sure that all the tactics are straight. Maybe it's Jasper, who you saw last week, who can also be that. And then you got the 11 players and I'm on the pitch as the captain. Okay, I'm making sure that the team can shout at the referee without getting a booking. I'll make sure that the team can assist each other. I can make sure that they can score those goals, but also defend our goal and make sure that we don't lose at the end of the day. But that's what I do, and I do that on both the new business side, then to translate it into actually today's topic rather than football, and I do it on the customer management side. So I'm a defender, a midfielder, and an attacker, but I need my team around me, because without my team I can't do anything.
That's so nice. I love it. So, guys, judge the wise man, judge the football coach over here. Tell me if they did it right, but we will directly jump in. So, again, feel free to ask questions. That is really about squeezing a maximum of value. The topic is on the board. You are maybe not aware. That was the first session. Second was it's a discussion that your product team and your technical guys do have. And now I bring you basically the sales guide that will help you from need on the board, a product built from the product guys to how do we get that into the market and we make revenue with happy customers behind it. And Tez, I love to start always with that kind of shitty question. It's basically you're always telling me something, John, when we are opening a conversation, the first conversation after a trial, a demo, a request, and we are not there. The fastest way to kill an analytic deal would be to start with a demonstration.
Right.
Can you maybe dig a little bit in there? Because most of the people would say, "Are you scared to show it? It should be normal. I ask for something." Can you give your 2 cents on this?
Yeah, sure. I think the fastest way to kill any opportunity or any lead is to present a load of features, whether you're selling analytics, whether you sell HR platform, whether you sell some IT services solution. If you present features straight out of the gate, you're going to lose the deal. I mean, 95% of the time. And the crazy thing is that it is often perceived as the safe sales approach by the salespeople. And trust me, it's the least fruitful one. Once you finally have a demo request and you've got a really nice meeting planned, the ICP is there, it's the right persona. Rather than just opening up your application and let's talk about your dashboard in this instance and showcasing how well you can filter, how well you can drill into things, how you can get all these fantastic insights styled in the right way. I highly recommend that you use the most simplest approach. It sounds the most simplest approach that you can possibly think of. And you asked me about my kids, because if you would be able to keep the curiosity that you have as a kid, right, and take that into your demo meetings, you will start to win an awful lot, because guess what? They never take an answer for an answer, and they continue to dig into your answer. So, for example, if you go to the doctor, I like to use this analogy. If you go to the doctor, you see a GP, you've got a headache, right? And you go to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I've got a headache today. Can you please help me out?" Right? And the doctor says, "Yeah, sure. Take some ibuprofen or take a paracetamol. Off you go." Right? The next time you've got that headache, or let's turn it into a migraine. It's not a headache; it's actually a migraine. You wonder, well, hold on, this last doctor didn't even listen to me, right? He didn't want to understand where did the headache come from. He didn't ask me a question on, did you drink enough water? Or they didn't really show an interest in me and just like, move on, I don't have time for this, take a paracetamol. You probably won't go back to that doctor, right? And that's an issue. So ask yourself the question, right? When you do get to speak with someone or before you get to jump on a demo call, what is it really that these people would be interested in? And let's translate that into analytics, because that's what we're here for. Are they looking to buy a chart, which no one is, or are they actually looking to buy better decisions for their customers? Are they looking for fewer meetings, fewer support tickets? Are they looking to create more customer stickiness? Are they looking to benchmark all the data that they have, because they have this phenomenal quality of data readily available, or are they just looking for some, a quick ROI game and they want to advance their analytics offering? It really depends, and you can't just show up word vomiting a load of great features that you have available, but you need to understand what's going on under the hood, and then once you do know it, obviously put your product in the best daylight that you can and show how your product is solving those things that they're looking for straight there.
I'll just try to reframe a very short one. I would say it's basically, you're not saying don't show your product, you're saying go deep in the conversation so that you can show your product in its best shape towards the needs or the opportunity that the people are looking to solve. If I try to
Correct. Very well summarized there. Yes.
Marketeer, man, marketeers. I need to help those LLMs to find me out. But it's a perfect transition, because when I was reframing this in my mind, I was already, okay, that is like packaging in a way side, it's about your offering. And those are two elements where I know that the wise man with us can help us and share his insight about packaging, offering, and how do you bring this all together in that idea that you only show once you really know what you need to show.
Yeah, exactly, and I agree with everything that you've just been talking about there, Tess. And I think it's a great analogy, around how a doctor approaches things. But in my mind, essentially, how you start packaging analytics is always thinking about the user journey at the end. So how do I make people's lives easier? How do I get people to engage? And then how do I help them make more informed and better decisions that will ultimately help them do their job, help the company they work for drive value, whether it's reducing costs, increasing revenue, whatever it is in terms of the value lever. But these two have to go together, because if you don't build it in a way that initially engages people to actually want to use the platform, and then through upsell features, incentivize them to get excited about the future features you're adding, which will help them engage and do things even better, maybe even take actions. So not just look at insights and more intelligent insights, but actually then be able to take an action within that same platform to save them having to go between platforms and make them more productive. That will then create a virtuous circle, more engagement, better decisions, better value, and then people understand when you go through the stage of the monetization what it is they're getting for that. So from my experience, that's absolutely critical. And I think so the UI and the features and the content are important, but it has to be with the end user's user journey in mind, and then the data they're looking at and the insights they're getting. You can drive a second value lever by making them more contextual. So rather than binary business decisions, my sales are up, my sales are down, my profit margins are up or down. It's understanding the why. So the more we can help people understand the why in terms of what's driving those outcomes, then they can make better decisions to do something about it. So that at a high level is how I've always looked at how you package and monetize analytics, and it's very much a value game.
Again, feel free to disagree sometimes. I don't mind about it.
I was trying to think
although
of
that I know
something
that you kind of go like hand in hand. Basically, if I try to build from what Tess said, what you're adding or you put a lot of addings over here, I think. What I like is that you put like the customer of our customer, in our case, at the center of those decisions. You should always start from what are all clients trying to deliver to their client. And so it's a bit like kind of reverse engineering, just to bring some fancy word in this session as well. I like that idea. And from there, then you can apply all what that's, and that is where I see really that fusion from both angles getting together. Now, I think I see some angles over there. Now we'll bring a topic that I know that Tess loves, because he spent quite, let's say, a couple of hours, not to say more, internally with Lisbeth, which we say hi, by the way. So I will bring a topic, which is pricing. And pricing in the sense of monetization is definitely something that we need to talk about, and where I think, and I hope that we will have some questions around that, because pricing at first hand seems really simple, but I can swear that when you look at even from my side, and it's easy, and guys, I just need to put something online based on a decision which is made internally. But that one is really tricky. So Tess, can you bring us a bit in those reflection regarding pricing, but in that roadmap strategy, because that is where people will need to to bring the value. If it came from the discussion of monetization is at the board, the PM at the moment need to come in and say, yeah, but I heard that at board, so that is how I want to make it happen through the roadmap, and there is a lot of elements over there. Can you bring us, maybe for those that are less used to have access to that insight, about what should they think about, how can they operate around it, those kind of very tangible elements, probably?
Yeah, look, I think it's indeed price is a very, very, very important element, right, of for any business, because it's the one element that puts revenue on the board, right? It's also the go-to way of getting it. But let's be honest, if you think about it, a price doesn't really matter. I know it sounds really cliche because it does. It's costly, whatever. But just I want to change the perspective slightly, because if you think in return of investment rather than what something is costing you, and how you could, for example, threefold your ROI, then the internal conversations become a lot easier. I hate it, right? When I jump on a call, or my first call, let's say discovery call, it's a demo, and the first question I'm going to get, oh, what's the price? Or I've looked at your pricing page. Well, this is expensive. And you're like, well, of course you're going to think it's expensive, because we've not even discussed where the value is for you. We as a team haven't anchored any value for you yet. So I always then want to pose the question to the customer or internally, if I'm looking for some investment into something, I want to then talk about where this is helping us and how this is helping us. So the standard things, right? This investment, is it going to save us time? If it does, then guess what? We can get a lot of savings, because talking in the dashboarding, the analytics space, if I don't have to tweak every single dashboard anymore, guess what? I can have an engineer free to work on some other bits and bobs. Fantastic, big win. So it's going to save time, it's going to save resource, it's going to be able to potentially save you churn, right? Maybe a customer has been asking for some data points for a long time. You struggled to unlock the data, you haven't been able to provide it back, and guess what? A competitor is doing it better, right? So rather than just talking about what the price is of analytics, talk about what the price is of saving that particular customer in that instance. Alongside that, and I think these go hand in hand, it's also about new business, right? So if you are in a competitive landscape, how do you differentiate yourself? You can differentiate yourselves by offering a solution to their time, their resources, their functionality, whatever it might be. So it's a, when you ask me about price, and that's where you started off with pricing, I think great, but let's not talk about pricing, because honestly, it doesn't matter. The price is in the value that the other person sees in the offer that you have, and keep it very relevant to data. If I can make their business operational more efficient, or I can save them time by giving them the right insights, guess what? That's the price well worth pay for.
I love that, and I think that is, sorry, but that's a ball that I need to throw to you, Mike, because he took again the perspective from the end customer to basically debomb, I would say, the tough conversations internally. It's like when you use the client, normally it's always easier to align, because at the end of the day, we should all be looking at it. We all say we do, but I will be honest. It's like McCain, the famous talk. We all say we do, but at the end of the day, take us less than 10 seconds to forget about that dear customer of us. So, but maybe just to reconnect with that, how do you see this? Because you have experience with that as well, I would say. So I think it can be some good add-ons over here.
The point, that's a great point, Chaz. The point around value, and whether it's driving operational efficiencies or new products and new revenue lines, however you're monetizing your data, it will depend on the type of business that you're operating. But ultimately, the value, what's really important with all of this is not thinking about pricing this type of product on a usage or seat-based environment, from my experience, because the thing about embedded insights is really the value is entirely driven by adoption. And if you have a red flag, particularly to a CFO, to say, okay, well, we've got all this new technology and all these new data, capabilities, but we're unsure about how the costs are going to scale, because ultimately, if we have lots and lots of people using it on a consumption or seat basis, our costs are going to go through the roof. Then people will then be discouraged from using it. So one thing I would say from my experience is always to avoid anything that drives adoption down, because that value lever only goes up the more you get people using it. When I've worked with clients in the past, some of which have had tens of thousands of users on the platform, to get an operational company that one was a restaurant company that ran hundreds of outlets. To get every single store manager to use the product, it had to be usable, and we couldn't be worried about costs, because it effectively changed all of their operational processes, drove them many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of value. But that was only driven to that level because everyone was using it, and everyone was encouraged to use it. And I think that's a really key point for me when you think about how you price things and monetize things. And then your features, like as I touched on earlier, should be designed to enhance the decisions these people are making, or that user experience further, so people feel encouraged to pay more for your product because it's driving even more value.
I really like the add-ons, the addings that you provide to each other. I tried to reframe it again because that's helped me like make sure that I get it right. I was hearing Tess saying that basically pricing is a tool, like in a tool set. Pricing is part of the tools that you have. You should think that from the end customer perspective. And what you were adding, Mike, is if you just look at from a cost perspective, you will be missing the big ambition that you can deliver behind using appropriately the tool, which should be adoption, which will generate upsell, cross-sell. And basically, I will make it a bit no friends with CFO. Guys, if the guys from those very well-known players, ChatGPT and other, were looking at the cost of the infrastructure as the driver to build the pricing, we would have paid 20K a month from day one, and nobody would have basically land on those. And so that sometimes you need really to understand that pricing is a tool in a toolbox, which is a step towards something bigger that you try to deliver, where the value should always be driven by the customer, but you need to be smart enough to deliver on it, on adoption, which seems to me way underrated today. That's basically bring them on. Why putting seats when you don't care how more users or more usage, because that's what you're looking at. So stop thinking in euros or dollars incremental. Think big game. So how do I make a 10, 100 million business, instead of saying, oh, let's by pricing, tooling, tactics, adding 2% revenue.
Just think about it as well. Yeah, it's perfect. A good summary there. And to add to that, I think the more people use your platform, the stickier you become, right? And if you price something on a per seat basis, even though you probably have a lot more than if you keep it bundled into one. Guess what? If it's going to cost me more to do and use something more, I'm probably going to say, let's combine the usage, right? Instead of me having an individual user in an application, I'm going to create a sales at login, right? And all my sales team is going to use that particular login, and they don't have the flexibility to then just use it whenever they want. Whereas, especially with data, you want it available to everyone, right? You want it available right there in the workflow of where they're making their decisions. And if we're going to limit that, that's tricky.
Absolutely. And if you think about the top line and the huge savings that it makes by creating that, increasing the efficiency, and essentially, as you say, Thijs, becoming an essential part of an operation. So it's beyond sticky, because essentially nothing works without it. And that can also protect your core applications, because if you're bundling a data capability on top of a core SaaS product or products that you're selling, then essentially people can't do without the applications, because then the underlying data operations that the entire company's using won't work. And that was something I came across really in the early days, 14, 15 years ago, when I started doing this, and just how powerful that becomes. And I think the other thing that people sometimes forget with blinkers is not thinking about if you can demonstrate to a CEO that the entire company is using a platform that's helping to drive the kind of financial results that we're talking about, then the additional costs that will come with that, for the underlying technologies that power that, will only be a small proportion of that, because people will look at that bill and they might think in isolation that looks like quite a high running cost, but when you actually put it underneath, the top line efficiencies or revenue it's driving, it's all extremely manageable. So and I think that's sometimes a trap that many companies fall into, is not looking at it in that way.
Cool stuff.
To make it very
go ahead.
Oh no, go for it. Then.
No,
I mean,
go.
Just
To
that,
me,
just
it
to add
was
on
more
to
like
that.
an add-on, but go first.
Yeah.
Go first.
Because I mean, pricing, as you said at the start, it was very topical, and we really were wrestling with this idea, because we had the initial concept of monthly active viewers and monthly active designers, and we split it in that way, and we still have plans that are configured in that way, and it works for some of them. But we also then looked at, okay, well, why don't we just simplify that, right? And instead of splitting these things out, we call it a monthly active user, and give everyone the ability to do whatever they want in the platform, or to give our customer the ability to enable them to sell on some of the functionality. Because looking at the bigger picture, the more functionality they use, again, the stickier they are for their customers. And guess what? If they're stickier, we're stickier. So it's like a win-win that we're trying to generate. Sorry to
No, it's good. It's really good. I remember, because I was a lot looking at the early days of the startup, and that idea that you said about, hey, if I can tell I have so many users on my platform to the CEO, I reduce like the pain and the freeze moment from the CFO. That was more Mike's days. You guys were like, go, give access. You remember a company called Dropbox? And their major competitor was Box, which was more like an enterprise kind of drive, I would say. You know what Dropbox did when they were pitching against them? They were doing like this, opening a door. They say, who has a Dropbox account? Who has a Box account? Nobody. They say, you can choose now, buy them or us. As simple as that. The adoption was done. You don't need to fight anything anymore when the adoption is done. Because it's there. We talk a lot, and that's more my geek style, shadow IT and all of those things. If you think in the way from, hey, give to the people what they need to be able to be good in their job, that should be also the way to see it. And adoption seems, for me, in that sense, a very good example again. Just to build up on what you did. And I have really that image where you see the sales guy opening, who is using Lismo? The day that we have this, that would be so fun and so cool. And then and who works with Dataloop, by the way? Let's go for like Wave, because he's into football. Then we can have the Ola. That would be amazing. So a bit more serious now. Back to our topic over here. There is also that notion, a lot, and we did touch that quite heavily in the previous session, about giving away for free. And then I've always that feeling that most of the SaaS players, or in our kind of industry, they always feel a little bit bad, because it's good, but maybe not that good enough that we ask money for it. And at the other end, you have your product guys like Jasper. They say, hey, buddy, stop giving all my stuff for free. I want to see the revenue getting in there. And I know that is something deep in your heart as well, Mike, because you went through those different companies and different experience. And yes, it's easy to say, let's give free for have adoption. But in my opinion, we might bump against a little issue, or maybe that we should see it at a different angle. So listening to the wise man, that will bring us clarity over here.
I think, I mean, it's always a conundrum, this one, John, to be honest. It's, it also depends on where an organization is at the current time, in the current position. Because if, for example, if your customers are screaming out for reporting or analytical capability that you don't have, and they believe it should be a core part of the platform, then clearly you're going to have to start by bundling some of it in with the platform. And I've worked with many clients that do that. So essentially, it's a must do. Otherwise, you end up with attrition, because those clients will leave unless you give them something. Now, if you're in a great position where you're at that point, your customers are really happy, then you can jump straight to the monetization path, and you don't need to worry so much about that. But from my experience, most organizations have to give a little to get a bit. And most companies aren't perfect, regardless if they think they are. But generally, I've worked with quite a few, large and small, and that's typically the path you go through. The critical thing with this, once you is have very, very clear guardrails around what the included options are, because otherwise it gets out of control within SaaS organizations. If you don't, then dare I say it, Tyson, I'm sure you'll relate to this one. Some of the CS guys and the sales guys will then start using it as a lever to close wider deals and not monetize the capability separately.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, the CFO will look at it and go, this is now a very expensive cost center rather than a profit or a revenue center. It'll get perceived in a different way. And once you start going down that path, then it becomes really hard for customers to understand what they need to pay for. So my advice would be really clear on what's included, and then be also really clear, as in the same way as I said earlier, around how you step up the sophistication of your data capabilities, both in terms of those cool engagement features, helping people do their job more seamlessly and efficiently to drive more value, but also by bringing in other data feeds, external data, for example, to your own data to provide that context that I said earlier, so people understand the why better. So that's kind of, from my experience, that's what I've tended how I've tended to approach it. However, still even doing that, you still need to be very wary about that scope creep. And this client is particularly important, so we're just going to give it to this one. We won't give it to anybody else, honestly.
Yeah.
And you think you probably will actually, and then we create that culture that we don't want to create.
Des, would love your take, because there is one thing that I love what Mike said is you need to give something to have something back. I see this as part of education and how we are normally all educated. And I always tell that to my son when we are in a supermarket and that you get that free sample. I say, mate, it's not just to give you an experience or saying that they offer it to you. It's so that they are sure that you say, we love it, that mom and dad are going to put it in the basket. So there is a reciprocity stuff in the education layer, which I like about you giving to receive. It's paid forward, but maybe that you can even elaborate a bit more on that. I would be curious. I will probably ask questions.
Yeah, that's fine. I think, to be honest, I find it really challenging to make sure that you give the right level of free stuff, quote unquote, right? Because the reality is, in sales and in customer success, we work in quarters, right? And especially on an individual level, if you're working against a quota and you get the chance to close something and the quarter ends in 2 weeks' time, and you feel that little bit of extra flavor on top of the deal will help push them onwards, because normally the timeline is actually in 4 weeks' time, and to get to 100% you need to really push to make this happen. And I can completely emphasize with the thought process and the thinking around on an individual level how important that is. But if it comes to that stage, you probably missed something, along the way. And it goes back to the first thing that I was referring to at the start of this conversation. You got to be certain you understand everything, and a discovery never ends. So if you find yourself having to, sweeten the deal and give some more stuff, I will go as far as saying you've missed something along the way. You've made a mistake, right? Having said that, right, I'd like to use the example of Strava. I think they are the masters of enticing you in on on having you pay for more. For those of you that are runners and like to run, you're probably quite competitive, and Strava does it in a way that they give you a little bit, right? Oh, you're in the top 5 of runners against your friends, or you've put a best time out there, but they don't tell you additional pieces of information. If you can achieve something like that, where you can give them a little, as Mike was referring to, because I completely agree with Mike there, but you know the real value comes afterwards for those profound runners, you know, for those people that can get better by having that information, then you find yourself a sweet spot there. So yeah, use that as a honestly as an example when you're ever trying to monetize, you know, some of your elements in your own platforms.
Perfect transition, Nate, and I'm so aligned in what you're saying. I have other ideas.
I thought you wanted to disagree with us, you know, like what's
no,
happened?
I love the idea, but there are other things. But then I will switch too far from the topic
Sure.
because I was thinking about free trial, getting a foot in the door. How do you approach and land and expand? But if I end up here, then I'm basically building a sales training probably here, which is not. And I know that because we discuss a lot with Mike as well. And then I think you bringing, because you use Strava, what I would call models, and you know, in the everybody loves cheat sheets, templates, those kind of things. You ask my opinion. I think most of them that you see on any famous social network, if you see them there, you can probably sure that they are not working anymore. Those guys squeeze them to the hell and just try to sell you something where there is no value added. Just tip under disclosure, of course, don't buy shit on the internet. That's why. My point is, and that is why I want to have that conversation, because Strava, like you said, is in my opinion a perfect example of a model that delivers a real value and cash at the end of the day. And I know that Mike has strong vision and experience to around models. Can you bring us in a bit your world of structuring and thinking into models, which is in the conversation in the series that would bring definitely, in my opinion, a very important element that you need to bring on the table. Board, product, with your peers, it's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on the type of business that you are and how you're thinking about monetizing analytics. But from my experience, there's probably three that I would say I've worked through in the past. The first one is kind of what we've been talking about during this call predominantly, which is the classic, data product add-on. So that's essentially building a data capability that becomes, that small bit that we just talked about, the bit we have to give away to give that analytical capability becomes part of that. So that technically starts as a little bit of an add-on, but then becomes part of the core product. That add-on then expands by literally adding on those capabilities that I've said in terms of around, okay, well, you want these data integrations brought in. We have this, everything's in our business data model. So we understand the underlying, business context and semantics. We can bring that in to help you understand the why. And the more of those we bring in, we monetize each one along the track as part of the add-on. And then I think the other one is obviously around the front end features, whether that's additional AI capability, writing back to core applications so the workflows become seamless, more engaging functionality, and all that good stuff around the product functionality. So to me, that's your classic add-on, and then you have the different tiers that you build up to monetize that. With a tiered plan, that typically is organizations that have basic through to premium versions of their own core products. They don't want a specific add-on, but they want analytical capability built into it. That's a lot simpler. Typically, that just is essentially around the pillar of product features rather than data context, because that will typically be your own data without bringing in additional external data or anything like that. So that typically is how it works within a tiered plan. And then you would just ensure that all of the pricing ties in with your existing core pricing, and the uplift makes sense with what you're charging for your core product. I think the final one is really around a partner approach or a marketplace approach, whereby if your business is working with many different organizations, so you're a marketplace, for example, and you want to monetize that, you can build an app within your marketplace, build a data app to then capture all of the same data in a consistent way, but walled for each client. So, for example, if you're Shopify and you want to sell analytics to each of the vendors that use your platform, then that's another great way of doing it in terms of building a data app to bring all of that together and essentially moving through into the benchmarking space. And of course, as part of that, there are organizations themselves that actually just do benchmarking. So if you take the Nielsen's of this world and the very big data companies, I've done projects along those lines whereby they spend a lot of time and resource to basically scrape this data, collect this data from clients, then scrape it from public sources, and then pull it all together to then sell back to other people. So, for example, there was an outlet classification project that I did was basically classifying licensed outlets into their quality. So then the drinks brands could target premium brands to premium outlets, and more value conscious brands to value outlets, things like that. And in terms of targeted marketing for those type of people, that becomes highly valuable in terms of how you monetize data. So there's many different ways of looking at it, but in summary, I would say it's across those three: the add-on, the tiers, and the partner facing.
Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you, John. I don't know if that's. Oh, you muted yourself. There you go.
Yeah. It's because I was taking notes on what Mike was writing down, because there was something where I say I have a question where I'm not disagreeing with any of you, but basically Mike used the word add-on as the first one. Then he was basically leveraging much more the tiered plans as a second one, and he was using partner/marketplace. Marketplace, je m'en fous. I'm French, so I may say that at the moment, but I love the word partner, because at the end of the day, and that will be my sales pitch for today, guys, that is a partner SARI that we built. So now I want both of you to tell what can people expect from a partnership between Lusmo and Datalook, and why they should all ask basically for that free consultancy. I still have 3 open tickets, 30 minutes with one of the guys or all of the guys that I brought on stage here, but I want them to explain you why we are in a partnership, Lusmo, with the guys of Datalook. Normally, and we will be honest, Tess, we will give the word to the wise man first, because and then he will drop it back to you, but I don't want to do it. So Mike, when you're off, you ask Tess to elaborate, continue, whatever. So what should people keep in their mind about the value that the Lusmo and Datalook partnership deliver to them?
Well, certainly, I think we've been working together for quite some time now, and I think the key thing, I think Jan mentioned it with Jasper on last week's call as well. I think essentially everything you see is Lusmo, and everything you don't see is Datalook. So essentially, the reason why it's such a great partnership is because in order to have all the amazing insights surface within Lusmo and people to interact and take action with that data, everything needs to be organized underneath the hood. From whether it's connecting through to your data sources, through to building the semantic or the business model to provide that context, through to, if you want to write back actions, through to anything else really you want to do with data. And from our perspective, we try and keep things easy. And if you're very experienced at this, we can help with the parts that you feel you need help on. If you need help with everything, then we can help with that too. So it's essentially what we try and do is, first of all, frame where we believe the opportunity is in terms of being able to monetize the data, and then leave it over to you guys from a Lusmo perspective to make it look beautiful and engaging, and all of the great features in your platform. But
do you hear that, John? He basically calls us the glory hunters here, to stick with football terms. They do all the hard work, and no, it's true though. Like I think we're so well fitted together because you guys do and make sure that things are clean, performance, and we can tap into a very well organized structure. Off the back of that, we can do whatever you want, right? Whatever you want, and I think together it's a very good match. Because it helps, not just from a, hey, tap into this one single database that I have, but also from a, okay, well, hold on, we now have a database here with some simple information about, I'm going to keep this relatively stupid, but about footfall, right? So let's say I'm a store. But then I would like to include some additional data about my my cashier, right? So the money that comes in, and I want to bring in, maybe I want to go even further and do some forecasting, right? So I want to maybe add in some weather information or some trends or whatever it might be. Well, these guys do all the hard work then, in a way, right? And we then sort of tap into it to make sure that we can, we can then provide that insight, that value back to the business. So I think it's fair to say that we are the glory hunters. We run away with the prize in the end, as in like, oh, look how great Luzmo is, but you're the thing under the hood.
Yeah, but I think both of you, and I really like it. I had to explain it to my mom because it was Mother's Day last Sunday in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, it's not difficult. I'm working with a partner, and you know how much I love Formula One. They are the guys that work on the
Perfect.
engine, and you have
Yeah.
the guys that work on the shape of the car. Consider
Perfect.
my partner is under the hood, and Tess and Luzmo is the car how you see it. And if both are not perfectly working together, you are not a world champion like McLaren was. And that's what we build every single day. And
Yeah.
the driver is the product team for both of us. The guys that work under the hood, or as them focus about the guy doing like this, then we on the shaping as well. So I think, again, love analogies. And
It's a great analogy, John. I was about to say exactly the same thing.
yeah, because I think it's so true. And when people start understanding that, and I know that, again, the audience that we have is very aware, but what we try to do is helping them stream that conversation within an organization. Because, sometimes a guy which is designing is not that aware about the constraints. I'm middle age of both of you. I still remember designers fighting with integrators. You remember the guys on Photoshop, they were doing super stuff, and then they dropped that to a guy and say, make it a website. And the guy was using most of the time his middle finger to say, no way, it's impossible. This is something that you will never basically go through with Dataluke and Luzmo. We are there only to build solutions, not to push back to each other. We are there to deliver. And that is where you can take us as basically the guardian of the delivery. Back to the real topic. You like that? Okay. I will. You know what? I will push a button here. Normally, it's making a clip when I do that. So maybe that people like hook back, on this, and they will say, "Oh, for once, the moderator say something interesting." So revenue, costs, and alignment, because that's just what I said, And I think what we try to do with this kind of series, and Tess will be happy, we didn't show anything about the product of Dataluke, and we didn't show anything about Luzmo either. It was just about bringing conversation, really the meat for you to open. So, Mike, giving revenue, cost, and alignment problems, give maybe people some numbers so that they can put that on the board. Because I think boards, for those that don't know, those guys much older than me, with a lot of more money than me, they want figures because they don't take basically decision on guts. They take decision on figures or data at least. Can you bring us a bit with your experience and what are those key elements that need to be on the table when you want to, you know what, I will fight because I know that is right. What do they need to put on the table?
It's a good question. I think this is a complicated one because we go back to what I was saying earlier. It really depends on the current state of play within your organization and your level of maturity, and whether the investment is defensive because you're worried about attrition, or offensive because you're trying to grow product capability. Or if it's around operational efficiency, the way we talked about earlier. So all of these will, in terms of the numbers you can deliver on the back of this and the returns, all of these should be considered as part of this conversation. From my experience, what I would do is take, you can generally pretty quickly add up how much it's going to cost to get to that base level, that must-do stuff. The stuff you're bundling in and maybe you're giving initially for free. So I would advise you add up what that's going to cost and take that as a cost of doing business and include that within the margins of your core product sale. So whatever the margins you're working off with your core product, this becomes part of the cost of sale around that. I think then look at how much it's going to cost to add on the features that I talked about earlier. and then also look at the integration costs. So if you are going to integrate additional data feeds, or you're going to do you're going to do more frequent data refreshing or streaming or live updates, it's kind of working through a cost model around all of this. From my experience, if we're talking about real numbers, without going into specific dollars, if you look at percentages, it's even regardless of what your core pricing is, generally speaking, you should be looking at 5 times your investment in terms of core revenue for the future upsell. 4 to 5 times. And with the latest architecture at the back, from our perspective, from the data operations perspective, that's achievable. Particularly with efficiency you can now get by bringing in AI and everything that's developing there, which is a whole different and much deeper topic that maybe worth exploring further down the line. But from my experience, base one, that's a cost. Take that as a cost. Explain that it's a cost of doing business. It's getting to the required level, and then beyond that, model out the cost that you're expecting for each of those different product and integration features, and make sure that the final number makes sense with your underlying core pricing. And that's what I would suggest. But it's eminently achievable to be getting 75-80% margins, or 4 or 5 times the cost of your investment, if you're sensible and think through this in a way. And again, it's something we can help with in terms of recommending certain platforms and technologies that can help with those costs.
I really like your point about basically doing sales also has a cost of doing sales, and that when people can bring that within the conversation. If I take it from my perspective, that means that the people do their homework right. You're not saying, if I have this, I can bring that much. It's, to be able to bring that much, I need to invest this. And so it's always about an investment before a return. And it's what Tess said as well about, the discovery. You need to go deep and you need to pay forward. Yeah, you said you need to give something so that people get in. So I really like that idea. Then I'll also love your idea that you should make 5x that at the end. So probably, dear marketing team of John, if you listen, I want an infographic on what Mike just said so that we can put that on social media. And so we can maybe sell this as the playbook for monetization.
But that does depend on not doing what I said earlier. The point around the sales guys or the customer success and commercial guys giving these features away. Otherwise, you get nowhere near that, and then you fall into that cost center trap indefinitely.
No, but it's important. So, I think the angle that you take for having conversation, and Tez also has those with boards, I think your approach would definitely give credit. And, there is a big part in what you will try to do when you try to push a bit the boundaries about monetization will be about your credibility and how you can stand for things. And to that point, Tez, because you own at Lusmo sales, but you also have the CS, and we are both, let's say, asking a lot of the products. Can you bring us a bit in your marasme and not pulling me in your conversation? Keep it from the sales guy perspective over here. Leave the marketing outside of it.
Okay. Yeah, well, look, I think it's mentioned a couple of times, right? Alignment is crucial in anything that you do, and sales and CS can't do it on their own, okay? Because sales needs everything around them to be aligned in order for us to be able to operate in our best way possible. So picture it this way, right? I'm not going to talk about cost, and I don't like the word cost, by the way, Mike. I was going to disagree with you there. Call it an investment. It's never a cost. It's an investment. Cost is a dirty word. Something costs something. There you go. That's the one that disagrees.
Sorry, guys. That's my finance background. Apologies for that.
Wise man said, and then you have the young rookie that says, "Hey, I want to beat you, man, over here." That's decent competition.
Yeah. But basically, from a customer-facing analytical perspective, you need alignment, right? So we need product, we need engineering, we need a C-suite, we need. I'm going to leave out marketing because you mentioned so. But we also need marketing, right? Don't get me wrong. We need everything to work together, right, in a partnership. And I said it at the start, yes, I run a team, right? But I think as a business, you run a club, right? And a club consists out of multiple teams. And sometimes these teams, maybe lock horns and they disagree about certain things, but you should all be supportive of one another, because at the end of the day, you defend the same badge, right? And sorry if I bore you all with my football analogies, because I think you made a quick change for Formula One. I could do it in Formula One as well if you want, but I think it's just important to have alignment everywhere, right? Because with the right product, with the right motions, with the right processes, and with the right ROI calculation, and with everything, you need everything in order for you to achieve that end goal, which is at the end of the day, profit, right? We're all looking for that revenue, and just as single individual units, you will never be able to achieve that.
I love it. Amazing. We still have people live, so that means that we are doing something at least not wrong, I would say, because there are still people there. Question Q&A, I'll pick them up. I already had two. There
Okay.
is one which is really burning a little bit for me. So we're getting to the end, but I want that session now to close up. We were talking that pricing is like a tool that you need to see it as not in an investment, but paid forward and all those kind of elements. We are analytics, so most of the time you would say we need data to make basically our first pricing tier. But you don't have that because you're the new kid on the block. You gave too much free at first hand, and now you have been, hey, I want to talk monetization. We have push all those people that have been listening for us nearly for 3 hours. How do they build that first package, that first tier, when you don't have everything at fingertip to make it? How can you start iterating maybe, or what's the approach? Who want to pick that one?
I could start with that, really, and you might want to add some things on there, because it's very topical. It's very topical for us, because we're doing it with AI, right? For us, Luzmo IQ, AI within the platform, we're trying to get an understanding, of what value it brings. And the best source of information to have and get a starting point is to talk with your customers, right? The CS is crucial in this stage, because they need to speak with the customer to understand what value they see. And obviously, we can make an initial suggestion, right? We could shoot from the hip a little bit. I always recommend maybe not to do without having some form of understanding, but in some scenarios you have to. And if you've got a good relationship with that customer, they will be willing to challenge you on that, and you'll be able to have a healthy discussion, which would lead to a win-win for both parties, right? Where we're able to make a little bit of extra revenue, they're able to get an additional service from us, and together it's a good match. So my initial source of truth would be go and speak with those that already use you, and get an understanding how that additional dashboard or the additional AI enabled insight can help them grow their business, and what's it worth to them.
I like it. I can challenge you, but I will let Mike just push something. Not challenge you, but I had something in mind that I would like to
100%.
touch base with you. By the way, we're hiring and marketing for copywriting, so I need to upgrade my pricing page on the website. So if we can have like 20 minutes to date this, that would be nice. Mike, your turn.
The user feedback's everything, so I agree with you completely. So I said, understanding your customer pain points and those journeys to make their lives easier is your first port of call. Then understanding what data you have within your own control. So what do you do as a business? What data do you have? The amount of effort it's going to take to get it in shape, to give you those great insights and the user journeys you're looking to do. To me, that always goes first, and then you start considering those levers I said before around how you add the value. If we consider outside of the product features that Tice was just talking about, we think about the data. It's like, what data is going to bring the most context, the most value first. Hopefully, it's not going to be too expensive to get hold of that data or too difficult. But if it is, you need to consider that within your calculations and your timeframes and everything else. Because certainly one of the very first projects I did in this area was exactly down this path. We focused in exactly this way. Customers within a week of getting their hands on the capability for our own data were saying straight away, this is good, but it needs to have this. It needs to have this additional external data. Otherwise, it doesn't bring as much value. So it then helped us to then decide how we prioritize moving forward. And we were very honest and clear around how long it would take and what was going to come. And that two-way dialogue, people really like to be part of that from my experience. The end client loves to be part of helping shape that journey with you. So I think it's a really good point that you made there, Tyson. Just the more you involve your clients, the more they engage. And they want they want these outcomes as well. And they get genuinely excited in terms of helping you shape that roadmap.
I really like that. The fact that basically ask to the right person is basically what you both said.
It's good to
Don't
talk,
try
right?
to make it more complex sometimes than what it is.
Yeah.
Pick up your phone, call him, ask him.
That's it.
There is a good side question to this, because you remember that we said what are the data, the ingredients that you bring on the board. I think one of the ingredients that boards love to hear is when do you decide that we get success, and when do you decide to kill potentially an initiative? And I know that is it seems harsh, but I think in business you need to be able to say we scale or we kill something. So let's say that we take 90 days, which is, in my opinion, most of the time a fair, honest moment, or period. You have that tier one shoot 90 days after. How do you decide if you keep or if you kill? What would be like the element that you put on the board table again to say 90 days later, I will come with that data. You were talking about the investment, the cost of running sales, the 5x on the revenue. How does this look like 90 days later? Do you go like, ta-da, and what's that ta-da?
It's a really easy answer, in my opinion. It's pipeline.
I don't know. Pipeline? Okay.
Right. For me, it's like if I may not even have any revenue through the door yet, but if I can see it is generating the interest and we're going through the sales cycle, we're going through the right stages, and we're covering, the right things with the customer already or the new prospect. If I can clearly see that, right, and the conversion rates are there, that for me is the most important element. If I, after 90 days, if I go, look at my healthy pipeline, I'm well over quota with my, with my figures because of this unweighted weight, you name it. For me, that's the mecca, right? If I can bring a pipeline, it makes sense. Mute.
I like that idea that you don't need to bring euros, dollar directly into 90 days. What that is telling you, if you have enough traction on what you're building, normally your board or your access is going to buy in. And honestly, out of my personal experience, I would say 100% true. I think, Mike, you would buy on this as well, that if you can bring pipeline on the table, that conversation should go smooth. If not, tell me now. If yes, I have
No, I
another
agree
question.
completely. The only thing I would add is if you're doing it for defensive reasons with existing clients, because you have to, just make sure they're engaging with your new capability and you're doing some proper UAT with them to get their feedback. And so at least you're adding to that before you go on the offense. That your defense is organized, and the core, that base product we talked about earlier is ticked off, and that's been acceptable what that cost is, because there's no point in doing that cost if ultimately the people, the defensive play isn't working with the clients. So that's the only thing.
Perfect add-on, Mike. I must admit, that's yes, very good. Fully agree with it, because sometimes it can be a retention play, right? And it's also crucial to keep the customers happy that you have, right? Instead of trying to add on to a leaking bucket.
And honestly, I think retention is under focus by most of the organization. I just discovered a new option, guys.
Oh.
Thank you, Vincent, for the question. Thank you, Leo, for the other one. Thank you, Laurent, for the other one. I just saw the option. So how do you start with, hey, come on, back for 10 seconds. How do you start with the least investment? And thank you, Vincent, for the question. It will stay for 5 seconds more. Who want to pick that one?
Look, it depends on what you are looking to start with, right? I mean, I don't think you need a lot of investment to get started. You need a phone, a number to dial, and a conversation to be had, right? It goes back to my, point about speaking with your customers to understand what value is there. Now, if that's your starting point, or whether you're looking more operational, right? And how can you start with the least investment to get a dashboard going? Well, we've got a really good starter pack, as Lusmo, which doesn't cost you a lot of money, right? So it all depends on what the investment is. So maybe you want to add on to that a little bit. We could elaborate on that, unless you want to add on something, Mike, as well.
No, I don't think so. I mean, to be honest, to get to a proof of concept stage and start talking to your clients requires very little investment, because ultimately it's doing it in that order. Then that will determine how much you invest next. So if you have some great feedback around what you're planning, then you can adjust your budget accordingly. So I think I agree. Just take it in phases, and the fact that to phase one and to get to that first base requires very little investment. And then don't overinvest until you've qualified it with your clients and your target market, whether it's offensively or defensively. And then you can expand gradually up in the way we were touching on earlier. That would be my advice around sensible investment.
No, I think I like it. And just to your point, Vincent, I don't know when you joined, but basically what we try to build during an hour over here, it's basically no rocket science in the idea. The idea is really start from your end customer expectation, needs, and the reverse engineer it. Try to have that topic with decision makers within your organization that might introduce you to an exco on a board, so that you can build that kind of very light one pager business plan. Mike was sharing different models around it. I did ask my team to come up with a very lovely infographic that should help you put like the first spaces in there. And as a big reminder for everyone, you need to reach out to Data Luca Lusmo. There are many ways: email, LinkedIn, website. Just you can find us everywhere. Just type it in, even in ChatGPT. There is free consultations about that. So
Yes.
what's the idea behind that is that the guys that you saw today, but also the previous one, the VP product, the CEOs, the CTOs, based on the use case that you will put on the table, they will have a look with you. You will give them some insight and access, and they will start brainstorming with you to help you build everything we have been saying in those 3 sessions, from how do you build the case, how do you get the message right, how do you build the story to the board, but also the business plan that goes with it. So that is where you can definitely count on this. That is the idea of that initiative as well. And I think it was a good link to Vincent's question. I don't see other question. I know that we are already way above the time, because we are on hour 10 live, guys.
Wow.
You remember, Mike? You said, "Yeah, John,
20
sorry,
minutes.
but it will last
20
20 minutes." And I was like, "Yeah, come on." I know Tess, I know Mike, I know both of you, I know myself, and I try to be very concise. So I will try to summarize a little bit what we said in this session. The session is really about think at the end customer. What can you bring as value for them? If you don't know, go on the field, spend time within, think at the Strava example, then work it back to your organization. It's not hard. You need to start. That's again the idea. Monetization seems like very, sorry for those guys, McKinsey, BCG kind of stuff. No, it's a tool like anything else that you have experienced probably already many times. You need to make it pragmatic so that you can deliver on it. That's really the idea behind it. So start today, ask help to a partnership, which those 2 guys I think pitch very well. So that's the idea again, guys. So as a last call for you, Tess, because I couldn't resist to it.
Okay. Oh, Leos, a great question. The one and only Willem II, who can use your support because they're in the semi-final of playoffs to get promoted back into the first division. So if you could all, light a little candle to get them into the next stage, would be great. Great question.
Thank you for the question, Leo. So you get it, guys. This is how we love to work as well with our clients and our partners and our prospects. It needs to be that kind of relations. I'm not sure that there are a lot of webinars from product companies like us that run it this way, but that is why we didn't showcase, we didn't pitch the product. That was really not the idea. It's really showing that yes, we are good at data visualization. Yes, data look is amazing at the plumbing and everything, but we want to help you progress in your own organization. We want to help you deliver more on your client. And that is why you should abuse the free consultancy.
Yeah.
You should abuse the download of the ebook. You should abuse tagging us on LinkedIn and asking for help. That's really the idea. That's probably the only time that I said so many times abuse us, because it seems really strange when I was saying it. But I will say it again. Abuse this, because that is really, in my opinion, the best way for you to grow in your career, to really deliver, and to make that step up. Free doesn't exist. So let's move. Yes, Vincent, I will drop a link, but you can find it on our website as well. I will respond to you directly. But otherwise, just go on Lismo's website and you should find it. Reach out to Thijs on LinkedIn, very active as well. Myself, Mike as well. So that is the easy way. Otherwise, for the Lismo people, super easy. First name at lismo.com and you end up in our mailbox. Please avoid spam. Only for free consultancy. That's what we're looking at. Guys, maybe a last word for you. I'm done. It was a pleasure to organize that series. I'm already having a lot of ideas behind it. I also want to say huge thank you to every time dozens of people that joined us. Tell us what we do right. Tell us what we were missing. Tell us what you would love us to deliver more. That is where we want to stand. On that note, huge thank you. Merci beaucoup, les amis. Last words for you. I'm out.
No, cheers as well for hosting John, because it started as an idea, didn't it, Mike? This collaboration a couple of I would say a couple of months, but it's been like 6, 7, 8 months maybe already. Right? Time is flying, and it's really nice to see us being able to produce content that hopefully is going to be useful, right, for someone. One lesson I would want anyone to walk away with is, there's not one right or wrong way to monetize your data, right? And if you're uncertain, as John was saying, and you just want to have a chat about it, honestly, get in touch and we'll happily discuss it. It might turn out that we can't help you. We'll be straightforward as well on that and tell you. So, yeah, that's it for me. Mike, you got any last words?
No, thanks, Thijs. And just it's been a pleasure the last few months. It's been a great partnership. Lots of combined value here. And in terms of what we've just been talking about, I will leave you on 2 points. Number one, always think about your customer, make their life easier, make them want to engage with you. And then how do they do their job better? How do they drive value? How do they look good? And how does their company succeed? If you join those together, the rest of it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. The technology is the second thing to think about. The first thing are those first 2 points around the customers and the value you're trying to generate.
And for everyone in Europe, enjoy your day off tomorrow. That's that.
Yes. And if you're in New York, you can have a session with Tess, by the way. So feel free to follow us on social media. We'll be dropping a lot of bombs over there. Vincent, Laurent, Leo, the guys in the chat, the guys in the question, big thank you. It wouldn't be fun without an audience at the other end. I saw 22 people on YouTube, guys, on my right screen over there. So I will have some digging as well to do again. Again, huge thank you. Feedback is a gift, guys. So feel free to tell us. Replays will be ready in the 48 hours. Everything is accessible. And again, abuse the free consultancy. On that note, have a